Good afternoon there, and welcome to another edition of Unlock the Door Radio here on UCY TV. This is your host, Michael Cross here, and we're going to explore some issues that maybe the mainstream media tends to think that people I think they just think people aren't smart enough or that they care enough about the direction the country's taking to really analyze issues. And I think with what's currently happening with Donald Trump and the reaction that the mainstream media is having and so forth and the establishment, I think that's actually a pretty appropriate analysis of the way the media really feels about the public. So anyway, before I get going here, I would like to invite people to visit my website. That's easy enough to find. Go to Google and type in michaelcross.net. And if there's several Michael Crosses there, it's the one under the Freedom from Conscience book series. And also check my YouTube station out at Michael Cross. Again, that would probably in the description come up something about Freedom from Conscience. So anyway, what I thought I would do this afternoon is go over some of the things that I think are the strengths and maybe the potential weaknesses of some of our leading Republican candidates. And you know what? I'm not going to go so much into issues. I'm not going to spend the next several hours saying this candidate supports this and opposes that, except maybe in just adding some details. I think ultimately that Edward Bernays, the famous founder of marketing, I think he was right when he said that people don't think for the most part with their rational mind. They think with emotions. They think with images, and they vote according to images. So I think ultimately what the Republican candidates need to do is cultivate certain images if they hope to win. Now, there's a lot of Republicans out there, and there's some that really probably deserve to be mentioned, but I'm not going to because I don't think that they're really what you would call front runners or people that stand a chance. And then there's some that I don't even take seriously at all, like Lindsey Graham. I mean, doesn't even deserve much commentary here at all. So I'm not going to give him any. But what I'd like to do is deal with some of the head people, the front runners, and give you my own analysis as to what their strengths and weaknesses are and what they could really use psychologically to get people to vote for them. And of course, like I said, psychology is what wins out. Most people don't just sit there and analyze issues, okay? Face it, they just don't. Some do, but not most. So anyway, let's just start off here. Let's knock off our list here. And we'll start with Jeb Bush. Now, with Jeb Bush, a lot of people, I think, feel that he's part of an American royalty, you know, the Bush clan. You had Bush Sr., and then you had George W., and now Jeb wants his chance to become president as well. And I think one of his main strengths is his connections. But I think that's where it ends, ultimately. Yeah, you got some good connections there. He knows a lot of the real establishment people and so forth. I mean, his family's been part of the establishment for a long time. But I think his lineage and the fact that everyone knows his connections, and finally, his last name, Bush, pretty much, I don't care what polls might say, it pretty much dooms him to failure. I really don't think he stands that much of a chance of winning the presidency. I do realize that perhaps superior fundraising and knowing the right people could get you a lot of publicity. But, you know, I've talked to a lot of Republicans, and I mean hardcore Republicans, okay? These people are capital R Republicans. And with every single one of them, I get this look like the look that a tourist would have eating Swedish strömming. It's like this really nasty smelling fish that they sell in Sweden. Most people in Sweden don't eat it. But they get this guy like, ugh, you know. I mean, no one's excited about Jeb Bush, okay? I haven't seen it. Everyone just gets this look. Maybe there's kind of a Bush fatigue. Can he run against his brother? That might be the only way he could really make it, is say that he's the black sheep of the Bush family, and he's going to try to incorporate all the good things, but really fight against the bad things. I don't really foresee him doing that, but it could work. It could work. Otherwise, I think you could pretty much scratch Jeb Bush off the list as to someone who would actually get the nomination. Then we get to here's a guy here, Dr. Ben Carson. And I have to say this. The guy comes across very intelligent. Okay? If I were him, I would run my campaign as the intellectual candidate who's running for office. I mean, first of all, it's kind of refreshing that he's not a lawyer, okay? And he's not been a senator for, longer than John McCain or someone like that. And he could really run as the outsider, and I think that would be his real plus. I foresee him. I don't know if he really has the connections and is aggressive enough to get the nomination, but I would say he has a very strong chance of a vice presidential choice for whoever gets it. He would really lend a lot to the ticket, and yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with the good doctor here. But again, he has to run on the intelligence and that ability to bring kind of it would be refreshing, kind of a scientific Republican viewpoint. Now, then we go to Chris Christie. Yeah. Okay. What can I say? First of all, I think a lot of Republicans still have a real sour taste in their mouth because after the hurricane that hit just before the election in 2012 and it provided Obama this fantastic photo op with the governor of New Jersey, a lot of people think that may have actually cost Romney the election because he was actually, according to a lot of opinion polls, Romney was ahead. A small lead, but he was ahead. And he was gaining little by little. I mean, it wasn't like this, speeding bullet train, but it was a steady, kind of a tugboat increase in his lead. And then when the hurricane struck, people were looking at images of leadership, and seriously, it really helped Obama when all those pictures were taken with him and Christie. And I think a lot of Republicans are not going to forgive him for that. So I'm not going to make any comments really about a lot of people joke about his weight and stuff like that. And I think that image can actually hurt him ultimately. But I guess if he really wanted to really maximize his presence, what he might really consider doing, if I was a psychologist telling him what he should do to win votes, is I would actually tell him to do a lot of these kind of things where maybe being a big guy would be a benefit. Like he should have pictures of himself arm wrestling with some big biker dude and things like that. Because then people would not so much see him as just being big, but they might see him as being big and strong. And that could really benefit him and take away from a lot of his detractors. Believe me, I see these memes all over Facebook, and they are really quite cruel to him. But we could sit back here and say, oh, well, yeah, that's terrible, and people shouldn't do that. But people are going to continue doing it. So, therefore, try to negate the negativity that comes from that. do some stuff that makes you look like the big guy. I'm just thinking of like Hoss Cartwright, for those old enough to remember the Bonanza series. He was a big guy, but they always depicted him as being really strong and husky and that sort of thing. And that can be a plus if it's used correctly. Okay. Now, although I really don't think Chris Christie's going to win the nomination. Again, I think that he's the thing with Obama and so forth. And there's some other issues, but I don't need to go into them. Those pictures of him and Obama will haunt him. Now, then we get to Ted Cruz. Okay. Again, when it comes to intelligence, I think he's a very intelligent guy. He's very, very, very smart and articulate. He does have that. He is the first Hispanic senator elected in Texas. And, face it, I hate to tell you Republicans this. These guys just didn't have enough babies during the 1960s and the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s. Republicans get most of their support from the middle class. Okay? And the middle class is primarily European and Northern European, Anglo-Saxon. These guys, and it has a very negative birth rate. The big growth, I think I saw somewhere where the growth of the Hispanic population since 1964 has been 500% or something like that. Hispanics are actually the future of the political process in the United States. They would be the people who would be making if we assume that blacks are going to continue voting as a bloc for the Democratic Party, and we consider that urban populations, regardless of their ethnicity, will continue voting for the Democratic Party. And we also see that the white population, where the Republicans get most of their base of support, where they be German Americans, Irish Americans, British Americans, so forth, it is shrinking. More people dying than being born. So the only hope the Republicans have is to try to really chip in, especially on the social libertarian issues in regards to the Hispanic voting bloc. Okay? If they could do that, if they could show that they're the party of opportunity, and, when you're a senator and you're Hispanic, you're showing that, yes, in America you can make it if you're Hispanic. This is very, very vital. Romney, again, I'm going to say Romney blew another opportunity. Romney, since his ancestors were born in Mexico, I think his grandfather was born in Mexico, technically, I believe, according to the census reports and stuff, he is able to say he's Hispanic. And I did hear one particular comedian back during the election in 2012 say, look, Romney, why are you so ashamed of being, Mexican? I mean, he should have actually played up on that. He should have talked. He didn't have to come out and make it sound like vote for me because of my heritage. He could easily have said that he could have made a references to his grandparents when they came from Mexico to the United States and established themselves. Those kinds of references would have still got the point across. But he blew it, and he didn't talk about those things. So he didn't build that connection that would have been really, really valuable. I think Ted Cruz could do it. I'll talk about Rubio later, but Cruz, I think, could actually have the charisma and the strength and intelligence and so forth to actually get that Hispanic vote. And, the thing is that on conservative issues, whether they be reining in the NSA or keeping the internet open and free, school choice, guns, all those kinds of issues, Ted Cruz is someone who fits into the mainstream of the Republican Party and a very large segment of the independents who tend to lean to the Republican Party, and also to a certain segment of the Democratic Party. So I think Ted Cruz would be a very strong candidate, and he should run on the issues that make him strong and not be apologetic. Okay? That's a biggie. In this election, people are tired of people just kind of cowering down and, I don't know, feeling guilty for this or that or whatever. When they say something, one of the Democratic candidates, I forget his name, against Hillary, said something about Black Lives Matter and White Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. And he got criticized at the political group that he was speaking for, a liberal group, and he apologized. That's the last thing he should have done. If he'd have just come out and said, I said it, I believe it, that settles it. This is what Americans are looking for, not people who back down whenever it's inconvenient that they said something. Okay? Just if you have an opinion and you throw it out into the public, stick with it, or at least explain it, but don't apologize. And I think that the Republicans need to remember that this election, people want something a little bit more refreshing than the same old, wine and cheese sort of approach to things. Now, then we get to another candidate who I'm actually quite impressed with, and that's Rand Paul. He's well known for his stands on individual freedom, libertarianism. Again, he's a doctor of ophthalmology, so like Carson, it's kind of nice when we don't actually have to have a lawyer and so forth. And he's pragmatic. He's not as hardcore as his father, who was a hardcore libertarian, or is a hardcore libertarian. I mean, he's pragmatic. He doesn't believe in bringing all the troops home and doing that sort of thing. But he has not been what you would call an interventionist. He was totally, he has brought the lawsuit against the NSA, and stated that he's very, very, very concerned with with ISIS getting weapons that the U.S. government claims they are trying to make sure only get to Syrian rebels, quote unquote on rebels. I mean, yeah, we're just going to send weapons to the good gang and not the bad gang. And they have no clue as to who the good guys and bad guys really are. But, Rand Paul has brought this issue up, and that's very, very, very good. Now, one thing he has, though, is a very strong base of libertarian support. And whereas that may not be the majority of the Republican Party, it is important for him to try to hold on to that, especially since Ted Cruz and Rand Paul tend to overlap with each other. And so I think they should stick with it, because one thing I've noticed about libertarian Republicans is that when you actually try to distance yourself on one issue or another, they tend not to trust you on anything. So it's best to keep consistent with what you've had over the years. But I think Rand Paul has a charisma and an ability to speak to especially young people and independents, and I think he could get the nomination as well. And the lawsuit against the NSA, that was actually that took a lot of guts in today's political climate. Now you look at Rick Perry. Where is Rick Perry? I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, 4 years ago, when he was it seemed like he was testing the waters and so forth, he seemed to be distinguished out there, and for some reason now he's there, but he's sort of, he doesn't seem to be able to garner that media attention and the attention of the rank and file that are important in the Republican Party. He has gained some support on the immigration issue. I will say that. He looked very strong when he was talking about going down and trying to do things to make sure the border was a bit more secure. But I think ultimately, I'm not foreseeing Rick Perry advancing and getting the nomination. Now, excuse me, I had to just move something there. I think I don't even know if he'd be really, if Ted Cruz would get the nomination. I'm not even sure you would want two people from Texas running on the same ticket. So I don't even really see Rick Perry as even being a vice presidential candidate if you had a situation in which Ted Cruz got the nomination. I'm sure maybe Rand Paul would choose him. I'm not sure. Although I tend to think that Rand Paul and Carson would be an ideal connection. That's just my personal opinion. But anyway, then we get to Marco Rubio. Again, he could get he's got strong Cuban support in Florida. He could easily be able to tap into that very vital Hispanic constituency. Although, again, I'm not sure that he has that very establishment look about him. And he has a lot of, it seems that a lot of the people who are in the traditional Republican circles like Rubio, and that could actually be a plus. I think actually the best thing could have been if, again, I keep bringing up, what if Romney had done this? Romney should have perhaps chosen him in 2012. I think it would have been, well, anyone would have been better than for his politics and getting him votes than his choice was. But I'm not going to count Rubio out. And he does get a lot of media attention, but I don't foresee him making it. Now, lastly, I hope I haven't missed people's favorite. There's going to be someone out there saying, hey, what about my, this candidate, Pataki, or that sort of thing. And I'm sorry, there's a huge list. And I think within the first few primaries, it's going to be cut. Maybe 2/3 will be cut out. I mean, people won't even get any delegates. So, again, I'm sorry if I'm not dealing with your favorite. But I'm going to lastly deal with Donald Trump. At first, I didn't really necessarily take him as serious. Because there's been other times where he's kind of been in and out and in and out when it comes to running for president. But, it's kind of interesting when I hear people who traditionally are not Republican start making comments, and this is just more the man on the street. When I hear people actually say, hey, Donald Trump, I can vote for him, and I know that they're not Republican, then I have to start taking notice. Now, the thing is, he's a businessman. He's considered a maverick. Could be, to a large degree, his persona that he has presented on television and other areas. I mean, he's been out there in the public eye for years. That could be a good and could be a bad. But the thing is, we do live in a media culture. And it's really important to be known. Okay? And Trump is well known. He's running right now on a populist sort of conservative platform. And whatever you think about his statements on whether it's John McCain or his statements about illegal immigration and so forth, the thing is it resonates very well with the public. And I'm not sure about the McCain thing. I'm really not sure. There are some Republicans that really still like McCain. But I don't know if it's enough that's going to really hurt him in the election. And the one thing I would say about Trump is maybe he is the one candidate who can go in there and kind of be the pit bull guy. And, I hate to say it, people like alpha males. Okay? There's been numerous studies that have shown the person who's the loudest, the most aggressive, and the most dominating is the one that an audience will believe has won a debate. Even if the smaller guy or who's more quiet has brought up better points, if the bigger guy or if the guy, let's say you've got a smaller guy, but he's just really loud and he's very, very commanding in his voice and the way he presents himself. it doesn't matter whether the debate teams, all coaches are all saying, well, I don't think he brought up this point good enough, and maybe he was a little loud and maybe a little obnoxious. Audiences will say that person won. And maybe it's just a throwback to the old days where, you wanted that loud, boisterous, manly guy that was going to whip the tribe up and go out and fight the other tribe, and, or to defend or take over or whatever. So maybe a little evolutionary psychology in there. And I think actually if Trump can keep it up, if he does not apologize, remember what I said at the beginning, apologies, don't. It's a sign of weakness. Okay? I know that everyone's mother said if you say something that offends someone, you should apologize. But in politics, you've got to look at it Machiavellian. It is a sign of weakness to apologize. Don't show that you're feeling guilty for what you say. Do I agree with everything that Donald Trump said? No, I don't. If I was his campaign advisor, I'd be sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, no, please don't say that." But at the same time, the things that are getting him a lot of support are the facts that what he's saying is really rallying the troops. And maybe that, there was a lot of generals, for instance. Think about this. There was a lot of generals in World War II. And who are the generals we remember? Okay? I hope one of them was an admiral. Anyway, the leaders, the military leaders that we think of, because we think of Eisenhower as being president. We don't usually think about his role in, commanding armed forces in Europe. But the ones we remember are Patton and MacArthur. Okay? There's a lot of others out there, but we don't remember them as much. They didn't have the commanding personality. So in that sense, I would say Trump could actually do it if he just goes in there and is willing to fight. And again, oh my gosh, he's going to bring Romney up again, isn't he? Yes, I am going to bring up Romney again. Romney was too mild-mannered. Whenever he actually got the nerve to raise his voice against Obama and was a little bit more aggressive, his poll numbers went up. Okay? And he was trying to be Mr. Polite. Okay? And that's not the way you win. Okay? If Donald Trump recognizes this, and it was already seen that he's way ahead of all the other candidates in just a short amount of time, and he continues with this and can kind of keep his, just don't stick the foot in the mouth too many times to where people just finally think, okay, now it's a little overboard, then he can win this. So ultimately, if I had to make a guess who the real front runners are, I would actually say, to a degree, it's going to be Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. Although I do think that Rand Paul and Ted Cruz are going to split votes. They kind of are getting the same, they have the same constituents out there within the Republican Party. Either one of them would be really good. And Donald Trump. These three are the ones you need to take notice of. Will the media do that? No. The media may take notice of Donald Trump because basically they can't otherwise. They can't do otherwise. See, there's no way they can avoid him. They're going to put a lot of attention on Jeb Bush, in my opinion. They're going to really, really, really be in Jeb Bush's corner, so to speak. But I don't know if that's going to be enough for Jeb Bush to make it. Okay? I just don't see people being excited about a third Bush. And they are apparently excited about a Donald Trump. One other thing about Donald Trump. I'll say this, finally, this is my last statement here when it comes to the general American public. People are frustrated. Republicans are mad as heck over the Republican leadership that because they were mad and they voted for the Republicans in the last election, then what did they get? They got a Republican leadership like Boehner and McConnell and those kind of people who they are very disappointed with. Okay? They wound up with these guys, and they're feeling like, what the heck happened to my vote? I voted for someone that would go in there and, cause a ruckus and stop a lot of the stuff that Obama's doing. And instead, they see that's not what they want. They don't want someone to go in there and be weak. And if you look at the Democrats, look what's happening. Hillary's scared. Okay? She's scared of Bernie Sanders. Because why? Because Bernie Sanders doesn't apologize. He gets in there, he has his stands, he pushes what he believes in. And, I don't agree with everything he stands for. There's some things I do, but a lot of things I don't. But he gets in there and he says it the way he feels it. And he draws in thousands and thousands of people. Whereas Hillary's not, she's the one with the connections. And I see pictures where, there's empty seats and stuff where she's speaking and so forth. She's not really exciting her base, whereas Bernie Sanders is. Do I think Bernie Sanders could get elected? No, I don't think he could get elected. I think he's too far to the left. Although I kind of thought the same way about Obama. The thing is that the American public wants something different, and they're tired of just feeling like they're left out, that the people that make the decisions are the rich people, the corporations, and the media that the corporations control. They're tired of this. They're feeling very alienated. So when someone gets up there and is angry, whether they're right-wing or left-wing, and they say they have an alternative and they're willing to shake things up, the American people will follow them. And so, that's just something maybe a lot of people just don't realize in the upper echelons. Maybe they're going to too many nice, formal cocktail parties, and, this is the etiquette, and this is how we're supposed to behave. No, I think right now, the American public doesn't want someone in a tuxedo with a martini glass in their hand. They want kind of a biker dude who's, they want that kind of image, okay? They want something different. And so the Republicans, especially, they better take note of it if they want to win, okay? So anyway, that's it for the first half hour of the show. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to check out my website at